January of 2019. So can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Cobo?
Here.
Ms. Cohen?
Here.
Mr. Each?
Here.
Ms. Estime Irvin?
Present.
Ms. Geimer?
Here.
Mr. McDermott?
Present.
Dr. Millian is not here. We left a message for Mr. Reynolds. He hadn't responded. Mr. Sanchez?
Present.
Ms. Couch?
Here.
And Mr. Genti is on military duty.
Is on.
Military duty.
Okay.
So he's excused.
Okay.
We have quorum.
Okay. Can we have Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Everybody's got their pads. You don't have a pad?
No.
That's right here.
Oh, didn't know anything about it. Now you do.
It was in the notice.
Okay. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes of November?
I so move.
I second.
Any discussion, corrections? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we're moving into, we have a lengthy agenda, so we're going to try and keep it tight tonight. So, agenda item number 1.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. I hope we all had a wonderful, restful holiday. We will be busy this coming year. I just want to get you all ready. Item number 1 is the review and approval of the updated grants guidelines. As you have, you're familiar, we've had to request waivers in the grant guidelines that we had already approved in June of 2017 because, as these projects are coming, sometimes we need a little bit more money or we need certain variances. So we were tasked with the duty of looking at best practices and finding ways to help our grant guidelines to be a little bit more flexible so it won't require so many waivers and to allow staff a little bit more flexibility to negotiate deals and so on. So before you will have the revised grant guidelines. What we've done is everything is in red. All the changes that we're proposing are in red, so I'm going to read them on the record, and if you have any questions as I go along, please ask. All the proposed changes are in red to allow for ease of review. Some changes are to provide more clarity for the applicants and the property owners, and that's really from the attorney. Mr. Zelkwitz, he's on his way, he's a little bit late, but a lot of it had to do with, for instance, we used to have lessee and now he wants tenant, and there were some terms he wanted to clarify, so you'll see that it doesn't have any substantive change to it, but it's in there. The more substantive changes that we are proposing are, the first one is page 3. Under automatic disqualification, letter F, unless the funding will not have its primary effect, the advancing as inhibiting of religion. So if you go under automatic disqualifications, we always, a church, any facility owned by a church or managed by a church, is not eligible to apply for a grant. That's always been in the guidelines since 2004, but we find ourselves now where other CRAs and other communities are finding ways to use church property to renovate, rehab. For instance, Overtown CRA did a cultural facility out of a church. Other CRAs up in north, they've used it. So the attorney, thank you for, welcome Mr. Zelkowitz. He put in the language that as long as it's not promoting or advancing religion, they can apply for a grant. So for instance, if they are running a daycare, they can apply for a grant for the daycare, even though they are the operator. Before, the way we used to do it, you'd have to have a tenant, and the tenant would come and apply. So that's the first substantive change that we're proposing in the guidelines. Second, on page 3, eligible uses, we're asking to allow for roof repair and replacements. Currently, when you come to us for an application, roof repair, as per the building code in the building department, it has to be less than 25% of your roof repair. Anything above 25% is considered a full replacement. We've had several applicants where they need to replace the whole roof, but they wouldn't be eligible in our current guidelines because of our guidelines are not updated as per the building code. We don't allow new roofs because a rehab grant doesn't do new constructions, additions, and new roofs. But if it's an existing roof that needs to be replaced, we're asking you to allow it, okay?
An existing roof that needs to be replaced.
Right.
Because the way we had it is repairs, and technically, let's say it's 50%, right? You're repairing an existing roof.
Yeah, we're starting to sound like the Small Business Administration instead of the CRA.
No.
This is what a lot of all the CRAs are expanding their services and their abilities to serve the community. So these are all things that are going on in other CRA. That's why she mentioned best practices, as to that. Under security and enhancement, the Nomini Connect,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to include that in the...
Yeah, it's just I'm including the program that we are sponsoring and covering, then I'm just putting the NOMI Connect name into the guidelines.
Okay.
So that was pretty much it, because we do fund the security enhancement and so on. Page 4, under beautification grants, we are asking to allow for murals with a 5-year maintenance period. So under the facade beautification grant guidelines that we have, we're asking to allow for private property owners to, they can apply for some kind of, it is a beautification, a mural. They do have to follow the city's code, the Division 21 Arts in Public and Private Places, the land use regulation. They have to apply for a permit, they have to pay for the permit, and they have to go through the process. There is an Arts and Public Places steering committee, and they are responsible for approving the murals and so on and so forth. And to be clear, the murals are only allowed in specific areas as designated in the LER. It is the downtown 125th Street corridor, West Dixie Highway, where Captain Jim's is, Mary's Pound, that's the arts district,
Arts District, yeah.
and by the train tracks. Those are the only 3 areas as per the city code that murals are allowed anyway. So it's not like you would see them popping up everywhere. It is an enhancement to the culture that we're trying to bring and enhance to here. So we're asking for property owners, if they have a blank wall, they want to apply for the beautification grant, they can apply to have a mural put up through this.
And if you go down to the design district,
Mhm.
and in that area, and you just see some really gorgeous stuff.
But I don't understand, what's a 5-year maintenance period?
So a beautification grant only has a 3-year maintenance period, because it's a
Okay.
small grant.
Okay.
For a mural, I need it to stay up longer than the
Okay.
3 years. So
Okay.
if you're applying for a mural, you're gonna have to abide with the 5-year term that we ask for the
But
other
they're-
larger grants. It's
Okay.
for more
But
durability. The
we
property
don't
owner.
maintain it,
No,
do.
they do.
They have to.
Okay.
They have to maintain it, they have to update it, they can't change it without coming back to us
Okay.
because we paid for it.
Right.
Right,
All
okay.
right,
Okay.
all right. So under the business attraction and rehabilitation grant, and this is where we have a lot of the changes that we're proposing. So let me read the change because it's substantive. So on page 5, the CRA at its sole discretion may consider increasing the funding limits on a case-by-case basis. If the request is above the standard amount mentioned above, applicant must abide by the following. Number 1, job creation and retention of City of North Miami residents will be required. 2, community benefits to include mentoring, internship, workshops for existing and new entrepreneurs within the City of North Miami. 3, all entities or contractors contracting with or receiving grants from the agency for new commercial and residential developments to be constructed within the redevelopment area in an amount of $200,000 or more, or such other amount as may be established by this board, shall enter into a community benefits agreement with the agency, which will benefit primarily the residents of the redevelopment area. To the extent allowed by law, a community benefits agreement shall include provisions for hiring the labor workforce for the project financed by the grant or agreement from residents of the redevelopment area that are unemployed or underemployed. Depending on the worker or employee to be hired, the community redevelopment agency will be required to ensure that such entity or contractor complies with wage requirements as applicable established by Miami-Dade County's living wage or responsible wage ordinances pursuant to section 2-8.9 and 2-11.16 respectively of the Code of Miami-Dade County, Florida, or pay higher wages and benefits as are feasible. Number 5, all entities or contractors contracting with or receiving a grant from the Community Redevelopment Agency in an amount of $500,000 or more, or such other amount as may be established by this board, shall comply with the following Miami-Dade County ordinances contained in the code as may be amended as if expressly applicable to such entities. Small business enterprises, community business enterprises, community small business enterprises, conflict of interest and code of ethics ordinances, and or living wage ordinance. So what we're saying is, if you are applying, right now our business attraction and business expansion grant is at $150,000 with a 50-50 match. If you're coming to us because you need more, for instance, Lost City Brewery came, they asked us for more. We required them to provide jobs and other services. So instead of asking you to come and waive every time and coming up with the terms, we're asking you to provide us with the ability to negotiate these items as we see that are beneficial to the community, as long as they abide by the rules that are written here. So some of them, obviously the jobs part is very important to the community. The community benefits in terms of internship, I kind of came up with that with, you know, if we're bringing all these breweries, maybe they can help the existing businesses to help out. The other items are actually in our interlocal agreement with Miami-Dade County. So I've incorporated it in that as well. So when a business owner comes, they see what is required and they can actually, you know, they'll think about whether they need that money or not and how we can move forward. So we've included that in the business attraction and expansion grant and in the business rehabilitation grant program. So if you're asking for more than what we usually, you know, we're offering, and we've received several requests, and maybe in the next few months you will see a few of them. We don't have to request waivers, we don't have to do all the stuff that we're always doing. We will come to you with the package that has been negotiated, and it will include these items in there. So that's what we're asking you to do. Page 9, extending the submittal time from 3 to 4 weeks. Usually any application is we need it 3 weeks before the first Monday so we can process and so on. But because we have received way too many applications and, you know, doing contract management, grant reimbursements, we're asking to change that now to 4 weeks, because it happens where the applicant, most of the times the applicant submits everything at the last minute. And then we still have to go through the process, review, contact the attorney, and make sure that everything is okay and so on before we're able to properly process and present the application to you. So we're asking to extend it from the 3 weeks to say you need to submit your application 4 weeks before the first meeting. All right, we're also updating our business category list. I've updated it with more beneficial businesses. You'll find them on page 21 that I'm pulling up. Here we go. Business categories as priorities: breweries, specialty donut shops, kitchen or restaurant halls and incubators, recording production studios for film and music industry. So these are the changes that we are proposing. If you have any questions, I am more than happy to answer, or our attorney. You know, have you ever had a mojo donut? No. Okay then. A mojo donut. Yeah, they're like this big, and they're not. It's not a donut anymore. It's not Krispy Kreme world anymore. But these are the types of businesses that we would like to attract, because they bring a following, they bring a clientele. So we want to incorporate it into our guidelines to make sure that they know we're available.
Okay. That completes agenda item 1. Is there any discussion from anyone?
What are we giving on the business grant, up to what, 150,000?
Well, they're all business, which the business attraction is 150 with a 50-50 match.
50-50 match, so they have to put up 150.
Right.
And how do you qualify that? How do you make sure that they do 150?
Well, first, when they submit the application, they have to provide us the total cost of the project and the bids. So traditionally, a bid that we get will show, if they're asking for 150, the cost of the project has to be 300, 350, and so on. Once the board approves it and the attorney does the agreement, everything is done by reimbursement. So if you're coming to me for your first reimbursement of, let's say, $50,000, you have to show me that you spent 100. You have to provide us copies of canceled checks, permits, inspections, and so on before we cut you that portion.
Cancel check,
Yeah, or credit card
financial
statements.
statements.
No, we just asked for the canceled checks to prove that they got paid. We have partial release of liens from the contractor that they got paid, and these are all, yeah, done. We had one applicant where she's like, oh, I paid the contractor cash, and he gave me a receipt. It doesn't apply. She had to eat that and go through the proper process, which is cutting a check and getting it done.
How about time in business? I mean, I come to you and I want to open up a specialty store. I don't know a damn thing about it. And we have some kind of I thought we had some kind of requirement that you had to be in a business, or you had to have some.
Yeah, you do have to have a business plan, and you do have to have business experience. It's in there. We're not touching that. It's still in there. So you do have to show experience and a business plan.
Okay, any other questions? Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. Next item. What?
That's
Agenda
what I'm
item
trying
number
to do,
2.
Going back.
Yeah. You tap the screen and you'll see the arrow on top, and you press the arrow back.
Yeah.
Then you have to go.
Not yet.
You gotta hit the top.
It's on the top.
Yeah, you gotta hit the top.
What top? Where?
Then they have
Top left
and
corner.
3 is before it's.
I'm hitting it, but I don't have an arrow.
I had the Indian,
I got an arrow.
no the arrow.
On the- Ah, there we go. Penny, just the corner.
Okay.
Thank you.
Here comes the guy.
Here's the IT department to the rescue.
Okay,
Okay.
you got back here, but where's, here, I'm going on. Which one?
I'm trying my best.
So I think, Mr. Each, were you here when I said that we are the first of the advisory committees with this? All the other advisory committees will be doing the same. So you're gonna get a lot of practice.
Oh, now I got
So
it.
he's gonna be working overtime.
We're good?
Okay, we ready? Agenda item number 2.
All right, good evening, committee members. Alberto Estrada, Purchasing Director for the City of North Miami. The item that you have before you under agenda item number 2
Okay, thank you.
are the results of the evaluation committee to select a firm in response to solicitation number 611718, which was issued on behalf of the North Miami CRA for the purpose of selecting qualified and experienced firms to provide architectural and engineering services for a new community center and other improvements intended to replace the existing Griffin Community Center. As many of you may know, the existing Griffin Community Center, which is located at 12220 Griffin Boulevard and sits directly across from the city's Griffin Park, was originally built in 1946 and currently consists of approximately 4,200 square feet, which is very limited in space and inadequate to provide the level of services which are needed to serve our community. As a result, staff is looking to engage the services of an architectural firm which can assist the city in the planning, design, and construction of a new community center. In response to this solicitation, as reflected in the report that is provided for you, the city received 20 proposals, and thereafter the evaluation committee was convened to conduct basically a 2-tier evaluation process. After the initial evaluation, which is a Tier 1 evaluation, and the results are included as part of your package, the committee shortlisted the top-ranked 5 firms, which are reflected also in the report. Following this initial Tier 1, the committees conducted interviews with the top 5 ranked firms, and the results of those interviews are the committee's recommendation of the firm Sinolowski Romanik Say LLC, which is being recommended for award by the CRA board, and obviously for your recommendation to the board. I want to point out that this item requests the approval of the evaluation committee's recommendation, and also is going to seek authority to proceed with negotiations for the initial phase, which consists of planning and programming. Once an agreement has been reached by staff and this firm, we will be resubmitting that agreement and the terms and conditions of the agreement to the committee and to the board for final approval. The goal of this initial phase is to develop a comprehensive program and project scope definition, which will guide the city in the design and construction of this new center, and which will incorporate the final approved consensus and vision of all stakeholders. This concludes my presentation of the item, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
Okay, anyone have any questions of Mr. Estrada?
How
Okay.
big is the new facility going to be?
Well, that's a good question. And that's why we are going to engage, hopefully with your approval, this firm. The initial phase is going to be a planning and programming phase. We are going to define the scope of how big will it be, 1 story, 2 stories. There are a lot of components, different elements and components of the new center. A lot of what this firm is going to do will be sort of a fact-finding mission. There's going to be meeting with stakeholders. There's going to be a lot of input from the community, from staff obviously, and from elected officials. And what's going to come out of this initial phase is a final scope, a well-defined scope as to how this community center will turn out. And obviously that final scope will be resubmitted to your committee and to the CRA board for their approval.
All right. So in other words, there's going to be a lot of community input. This is basically, they're going to be designing what it's going to look like, and they're going to design it based on what the community input and the community workshops are and that kind of thing. So the actual scope of it has, as they say, TBD, to be determined. And it'll be determined by us, the people in North Miami. So,
Is it gonna be, where the existing community center is, or are we gonna knock down the old JC hall, or take?
well, that's to be.
Those are all the
That's all
options
to
that
be
are on the
determined,
table.
Exactly.
All the parcels that are owned by the
Yeah.
city, those are all up
Right.
on the table.
Yeah. So we don't know yet.
And they even talked about, if I don't know if I can, about like using the canal as a feature and how do you maximize that and so
Good.
on and so forth.
Good.
So, yeah, so,
Yeah.
and a mini library.
Right, exactly.
I have a
So-
question. What is broken there?
I'm sorry,
What is broken there?
Yeah.
It's 100 years old.
Oh my God.
it is, it is, well, let's just say it's a little bit outdated, it's not big enough for all this stuff. And, you know, here's a perfect example. You know, when you have after-school activities, it allows for limited use of the center because it's a one-room, really.
Right.
And so if we're trying to have business workshops, we're trying to have other community events and activities in this area, and we don't have to go all the way up to JCC, you know, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, we're doing this. It needs to be updated, and also a lot, I mean, just one last thing. A lot of the proposals, when you look at the thick packet they gave you, a lot of the people were saying, you know, you guys are not looking at the community center and the park itself as one, because we have this, you know, Griffin Boulevard,
Right.
the way it is. So, you know, they gave a lot of ideas of, you know, making it, you know,
And we can
slower
all-
and more
and
practical.
There's a lot of concepts on the table, including closing that street. In other words, that Griffin Boulevard, so that the traffic stops right there at that where the park is and goes around. So there's a lot of,
Very good idea.
yeah, so there's a lot of good ideas on the table, so, you know. But anyway, any other questions, or do I hear a motion to approve?
I so move. I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Sure thing.
Okay. Let me start before you do that.
We get the page.
Start, okay. Before you, before Mr. Destrade goes through the process of explaining this, I just wanted to give you a reminder of this. So, as you recall, we did the downtown branding and marketing
Right.
This
Um,
side.
plan.
Right here.
right there.
Well, now it just came up. That's why.
The downtown branding and marketing campaign, and as you recall, last year we did a lot of those things. The banners, the walkers guides, the new website, which is working wonderfully. And one of the things was keeping our downtown clean and safe, and this is where we are now. I found this company through an article that was in the Daily Business Review, and I found out that they are actually, it's an outside company, and they are the clean team for Lincoln Road, Coral Gables, Coconut Grove, Bid, Orlando CRA just hired them for their downtown. They are a nationwide company. They're the ones, if you've been to New Orleans, they're the green shirts that clean up after the Mardi Gras. I'm going to let Mr. Destrade go through the process that he went through, and then there's a representative here, and then I'll tell you specifically what we're hiring them to do.
All right, committee members, just to follow up on Rasha's introduction, the item that you have is really the proposed, what we call a piggyback on the, in fact, the Coconut Grove Business Improvement District contract that Rasha mentioned. So what we're proposing is to piggyback on their contract and to award these to service contract to MyDat Services Incorporated. They are doing business as block by block, and it's basically for the implementation of a community supplemental cleaning program, safety and supplemental cleaning program. This proposed contract is really part of an ongoing effort by this administration to ensure that our public spaces reflect a city which is attractive and well kept to our residents, business owners, and to visitors. On September 7th, 2018, MyDat submitted a proposal to staff detailing their assessment of the CRA district and providing a list of recommendations for development and implementation of this program. Following staff's review of MyDat's proposal, the final version of that proposal and the scope of services to be provided during this initial term is attached as part of your report. To summarize really in terms of the services to be provided, they include but are not limited to cleaning services, including power washing, removal of graffiti, litter, and weed removal. They are also committed to providing local workforce outreach and hiring of local residents. They're going to provide workforce training, benefits, safety and first aid training. They will provide the necessary transportation, cleaning and maintenance equipment to carry out these services. They also provide communication and reporting technology through the use of their proprietary smart system. This pretty much concludes my presentation and recommendation. As Rasha mentioned, I believe there's a representative here from MyDat, so if you have any questions, we'll be glad to take.
Okay, would you
Mr.
like
James Weathers is here to, in case you have to
Yeah, would you like to
speak.
come up and tell us, introduce
so-
yourself and tell
Yeah,
us a little?
I can do whatever you need me to. But, what do you need me
Just
me
name
to
and-
tell
Your
you?
name and the
Okay.
company first.
Yeah, so James Weathers, Vice President, Operations for our Southeast region, with Block by Block. So MyDat's our parent company. We go by block.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So if you go through the packet and you'll see that I did he flew in because, I don't know if you remember, but this was on the agenda previously.
Yes.
And the president was here, and unfortunately, the item was, we had to move it because we didn't do it. So he was our last minute, and thank you for coming. He was
No,
the last minute.
you're welcome.
You know, because I said somebody needed to be here
Yeah.
to answer general questions. But I wanted to say that when I met with Mr. Jeff Heinrich, the vice president, we walked the quarter-mile radius of the downtown as per the walker's guide that we have. 123rd Street, West Dixie, Northeast 6, 125th Street. And what he did, and you can go through the packet, you can see, for instance, the picture we're in front of Cafe Creme, and you see all these little black spots, right? Those are weeds in the cracks. We don't need to see that. They have pictures of graffiti on the light poles. These are all the things that they will be removing themselves. They provide the equipments, they will provide the pickup truck, all the cleaning utensils, the pressure washer. If there's a stain on the sidewalk, they will remove it, that's their job. It's a 7-day-a-week job. We started working with a temporary schedule of like 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. because before business starts and so on and so forth. They also have the advantage of, if we have major events, they will come and clean. And what they do is they'll bring other workers from these other cities that they have already on contract and bring them here. So we're not going to be paying any overtime for that, but they are providing that cleaning service as well. I'm trying to see what else that made it. One thing that the manager made sure when we started talking was when we had some workers that we had hired for the Hurricane Irma through South Florida Workforce, they were making $13.50 an hour. So the manager said we have to follow the same, and also the city just adopted like their contracted temps salaries. I think Councilman Galvin had sponsored it to increase it. So they have to also follow the same thing. This will provide us with a on-site operations manager that's responsible 7 days a week for the staff's work and responsibility, and we don't have to, we don't have to chase them around or anything. I can look digitally, you can look digitally on the site to see what they're doing, what we need to get done. The most important part that we talked about was hiring local, and that's what they do. When they come in, they will rely on our expertise and our experience of, okay, these are the people that we know. If we know anybody who has that experience that will do the work, they will go and do the background check, the screening, and they will hire them. They provide the uniforms, they provide everything. What we will need to decide, I guess, eventually is, like, for instance, the colors. Lincoln Road, for instance, has white shirts and Panama hats, but they do more of like a safety than a cleaning. New Orleans, like I said, do green shirts. Other places do the bright
And
orange
they
shirts.
switch. So Lincoln Road, I mean, they had like a blue, like a light blue, and they actually wanted to go with like a cleaner look to more beach feel. So that's really up to you guys once you decide what look and feel you want for the CRA. But a lot of our bids use bright colors,
So you
which
can
help
spot it.
with the visibility to all the business owners as well as the residents, so you see them out there.
So, yes.
So I noticed that the hours of operations will be basically from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m.
Yeah.
But we know that a lot of activities, like graffiti activities, happen late in the night. So is there a plan for a night shift?
So I believe, and this is with talking with Jeff, I mean, what we generally do is put a tentative schedule out there that's going to be pretty much just showing what the hours are for the entire week. So the 7 to 3:30 is really just capturing those weekly hours. As far as when the activity occurs, we're not there to catch them doing the activity, but the goal would be is that if any activity is happening at a certain time period,
Schedule
then
it.
maybe we're moving our safety crew hours to a time of the day that's going to deter that type of activity.
And it's
Yeah.
not just graffiti, it's calmer, it's safe, it's calmer at night to work and more effective and efficient. I think both times.
Visibility with probably cleaning off of a wall of graffiti would be difficult
Yes.
at night.
Well, so I'm not just talking,
So-
I use graffiti as an example.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
Doing a
talking
lot
about
of things at night is
Correct.
difficult,
Okay.
if you're
Unless
cleaning.
it's tied to a special
Yeah.
event where you do
Okay.
have appropriate lighting, which would be what we discussed, then we would have to provide them with a schedule, and then they would
Right,
have it
because if-
in there.
If you're
But
talking 3:30, then what happens during rush hour when people are driving, throwing garbage? You know
This
what I
is
mean?
it's a flexible schedule for 7 days a week, but for instance, we don't need it Sunday mornings at 7 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
but we need it. So that's just, they put it as a placeholder, and as we move along, we're gonna be able to determine really when the biggest
Yeah,
portion
and
of the
just
schedule
for an
is.
example, and since we're using Lincoln Road, but we're in Lincoln Road, we're in Coral Gables, we're in Coconut Grove, we are in Hollywood, we're in downtown Miami, and then Orlando, Jacksonville. But for an example, Lincoln Road, we're operating from 7 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. So we may have one ambassador that starts at 7 a.m. that's doing a quick hit of some of our hot areas. And then at 11 a.m. we have a bigger
Bigger
group
crew.
that comes in, hits during our lunchtime traffic, or is there during our rush hour traffic at the end of the day. And then we have maybe 1 or 2 ambassadors that close out the night to follow up on them. So that's kind of how we would typically vary the schedule throughout the day.
So you're pretty flexible then?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it all depends on the district. I mean, you have downtown Miami that's going to have their parts of the day that's going to be extremely difficult to power wash and do certain things like that. So you schedule it, you know, at a different time of day, where here you're going to have a different business hours of operation than other districts. So absolutely.
Okay, is there any other questions?
This is just in the business district.
Right now, the downtown quarter-mile radius, I expect it might be expanded, you know, but right now, this is what we're focusing on.
So it's just the downtown, it's not
The
major
quarter
corridors.
mile, well, the major corridors at 125th Street, West Dixie,
But
Northeast
how
6th
far
Avenue.
off of Washington?
The quarter-mile radius is from where the pole banners are, right? So, West Dixie South, at the downtown corridor.
I see someone on San Souci Boulevard, the Friday cleaning up the swale, but it didn't look like that person had a city uniform. I thought it was maybe one of the contractors.
I know, we can ask. I know the city is looking at doing their own clean team as well,
Okay.
but I don't
Yeah.
know. So this will be the CRA's clean team.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, do I hear a motion to?
So
approve?
moved.
Yes, I'll second.
All right. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, next item.
Thank you, guys.
Urban Investors LLC, hello. Before you is a rehabilitation grant from Urban Investors LLC. You will remember that they were the building to our, west that caught fire around Christmas in 2017 with Tommy's Shoes and so on and so forth. The owners are here. In case you have any questions. So we've been working with them on their grant application, and now they've received several requests. Obviously, we're happy for new businesses looking for space. So they are now rehabbing the building. I don't know if you saw it right now. There's no roof. It's just, it's gutted, it's cleaned out, and so on and so forth. They're looking to do 5 bays. So they're asking us to help them with that. However, one of the additional requests is that the total cost of the project is $629,000. Traditionally, they would be asking for $100,000, which is the rehab grant, but they're asking for an additional $60,000 because they would like to have 1 grease trap for all 5 bays, which would
One what?
grease trap
Grease trap.
for restaurants. You know the grease trap. So instead of
Oh,
them,
grease trap.
yeah,
No, I thought you said, my hearing's really great. I thought you said, I thought you said bootstrap. I said, what the heck are you?
okay, Ms. Cohen, can you?
Oh, grease trap. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Grease trap. They're asking for 1 grease trap to accommodate the whole building so that it'll be easier for them in case they, in
Get a
case,
restaurant,
yeah, in case instead of doing 5 bays, if they have a restaurant that wants 2, 3 bays, you know, it's not cost prohibitive and they've already, you know, planned it out. Mr. and Mrs. Liff are here. If you could come up to the mic. If you have any additional questions. This grant would cover new impact windows and doors, exterior paint, ADA compliant bathrooms, electrical, mechanical, and structural upgrades, just to name a few. Like I said, the total cost of the project is $629,530. They're asking us for $160,000 and $60,000 more because they would like to cover 1 grease trap for the whole facility. I did ask them, they've received several requests from new businesses looking for space. So, you know, they practically have a wait list. It's just getting it done in a timely manner, dealing with DERM and so on to get this moving so that we can at least have a good facade and new businesses moving in the area.
You want
Mr.
to
Liff?
introduce yourself?
Sure, Eric Liff, Urban Investors 12200 LLC, address 12498 North Bay Shore Drive.
Okay. You want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing there?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the goal is obviously, and you can see through the application, it's a complete rehabilitation, quite extensive. And as you know, you know, going through an improvement to this extent is quite costly. And the fact is, and you're probably well aware, you know, the cost for what is, you know, very close to a new development and what we're able to achieve in rents in the market, there's a gap. And so this is obviously something that's very instrumental into helping us kind of close that gap. I think there's another component to this that's very important as well. As we looked at this and committed ourselves to this, we believe that there's one element to this area that's very, you know, that's
You like my son.
that is vastly needed. And we walk the streets and you look and it's you know, there seems to be a vacancy in terms of restaurants. The area needs nightlife, and we're here walking the streets and it's very quiet. And the opportunity to accommodate that requires, you know, this type of investment and sort of gap funding, if you will, because there's not only the cost of the grease trap, there's also improvements that are associated with the restaurant that, you know, is well above the cost of a traditional retail store. On top of that, it's also timing. And that's an important element because once we get a certificate of occupancy, a traditional retail operator can operate immediately. A restaurant could potentially be anywhere between, at the very least, 3 months and up to a year, because there's licensing in Durham, and that's funding. So, you know, that our number was not just out of the air. We actually had come up with, as best as we could, a calculation as to what we believe it would be to cover that cost. We really want to encourage a restaurant to be in that space, if not more. So, you know, with these funds, it's actually very important that, at least to support what I think is a very necessary use, that these funds would be well used and well applied.
Any questions?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. The building, the property, you're gonna demolish the whole thing and start from scratch, or you're just gonna?
No, we're not demolishing. We're using the walls have been tested, you know, from an engineering perspective, they are adequate, they're fundamentally structural, so they are staying. What we've had to do, though, is actually we've had to build a framework around those walls to be able to support a new roof. And so that is quite costly. It's actually specialized steel. And that, you know, that's the only element that's really kind of considered, you know, that's kind of out of the ordinary, if you will. But we are, the demising walls stay, everything stays. We're actually going to be putting in new windows, though, so it'll have a very modern look. It will be wide open with you know, with obviously a new facade, new windows, signage, lighting, everything to make it look very modern. And there's illustrations, I believe, in the package. And so that's the design that we're proposing.
So you'd keep it a single story?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
What's our height over there? How high can you go?
10 in the downtown.
10? Yeah, but you got a narrow space there.
Correct. It's
Right.
Yeah.
it's not even 4,000 square
I
feet.
mean, if we're
Yeah.
trying to redevelop downtown, I mean, wouldn't this be the opportune time to look at?
Believe me, we thought about it, but it's a bit cost
I
prohibitive
think
right
we're just
now.
chasing our tail. We're not going anyplace. We said we can go 10 stories in here. We're just remodeling a place that was caught on fire. I mean, just like, where's our advantage to it? Where's our future growth?
Right.
We want to create density. We want to create
Yeah,
activity
it's like the same
downtown.
thing at least
We're
two
just gonna
the
put in
space is
5
too
stores,
small.
right? I don't quite
Understood.
understand it.
Another, once,
But it couldn't be, under
One
this
for-
4,000 footprint, it's very difficult to go
Yeah.
vertical. You'll actually lose space
It's too
in
small.
terms of circulation. You'll have really no rentable area on the second floor.
Look, you know, we come up with the downtown redevelopment committee, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and we're spinning our wheels. So that's why, you know, I mean, nothing against you. I mean, I think this is an opportune time to
Sure.
maybe get a couple of pieces of property together with the city and go 10 stories, do something over there. We're looking at putting something over here on 8th Avenue and 121st Street, right across the street. And here we got a property that's now in need of rehabilitation. Why aren't we looking at that?
And
Why don't
that-
we think outside the box?
We don't own
Yeah.
I don't own it, you're right, but we're talking about redevelopment and we're not thinking outside the box. It's the same old stuff day in, day
it.
out.
I disagree, respectfully disagree. I mean, if the opportunity was there and somebody was selling land and they wanted to purchase, that makes sense, the
Yeah,
argument that
if
you're
you can
saying.
hold, if you own the whole block.
Yeah.
That's
So,
right,
maybe,
right,
yeah.
not just a small
Just
space.
a
So
small
in the
space.
meantime,
I totally, you know, I just don't.
Okay, any other
Spinning our
questions?
wheels.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
I do.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, Mr.
Yeah,
Sanchez?
because I know the place.
Yeah, I know.
All right,
When the Chinese or
Yeah.
Japanese,
Yeah, Chinese
Well,
restaurant
yeah.
caught
I
fire.
used to go there.
The
I know
Chinese,
the place.
Chinese restaurant, Tommy Shoe Store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any further
Okay.
Shoe
discussion?
repair store.
Any further discussion, ladies? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Okay.
That's it. Say by the bell.
Thank you.
Say by the bell.
Next item. All right, the Cave LLC, Business Attraction Grant Request. This property is located at 13641 Northwest 7th Avenue. If you are on Northwest 7th Avenue, it's a strip, a yellow strip of retail on the east side of Northwest 7th Avenue. It has a Subway, a Haitian restaurant. Yeah, and it used to have like an old grocery store, and next door to it is like not K. What is it? No, the not grocery store, but the little store. No, it's like a convenience store.
Oh, the quick stop.
It's a quick stop. Yeah, there's a quick stop.
It's in there.
All right. Yeah, the retail is right there. If you look at the pictures, you'll
Well, I couldn't figure
recognize
out,
it.
And police officers don't have a clue because they told me it was somewhere else.
Okay. Well, anyway, this property actually does exist. It's at 13641 Northwest 7th Avenue. The cave is requesting $178,000 to bring in. I'm sorry?
Our tech.
Oh,
Yeah,
Ron?
Come on, I got the camera going.
Okay. All right.
about me.
The Cave will be a full-service bar and cocktail lounge. This new bar and cocktail lounge seeks to be an attractive and high-quality social environment for meeting the needs of diversity amongst North Miami residents and South Florida residents alike. This, like I said, is an old grocery store. Mr. Derek Michelle is here. He is one of the owners of this business. He is asking, this property is 5,700 square feet. They're gonna get a 4COP SRX full liquor license. They will be open 7 days a week. They will be hiring locally. One of the things that I like about this project is exactly what I just told you. When you look at the strip, it's this old, outdated yellow thing. But what he did was he talked to the property owner, and they live, where again?
Colorado.
They live in Colorado, and he got them to agree to do a facade. So if you drive by it, you'll see that they've already started, changing it, and they've pulled the permits to start making the exterior renovations. So his investment is the inside. If you can see the pictures on page 19 of 49, they've already met, like I said, talked to the property owner, and they're doing at their own, out of their own pocket, they're doing the exterior facade, redoing the outside, updating the lights, the fixtures, the striping the parking spaces, and so on and so forth. So their request, and actually he had applied for the business attraction grant, which is $150,000. He met with Councilman Desulme, and Councilman Desulme suggested that he ask for a little bit more because, it was a grocery store, but once he started going through the DERM and all those requirements, there's a huge $28,000 DERM impact fee in addition to all the expenses that he's putting in. So the total cost of the project is $684,590. We are recommending the approval of the grant request because this will definitely uplift that area. It'll provide a new space, and I just want to say this is like diagonally across from Randy's restaurant. And I spoke to Randy's restaurant owners, and they say it's a great thing. Like, it'll bring new activities, new people into the area. Mr. Derek Michelle is here. If you have any questions.
Is this gonna be a bar and grill or just a
It's
lounge?
actually a cocktail lounge where we actually want to cater to basically bring a more comfortable environment to like North Miami, South Florida residents and whatnot. So it's actually open formatted, TVs for sports entertainment, music, live band, jazz, you name it. So we want to welcome everybody, all types of genres. Of course, 21 older. As Rosha mentioned, we have our 4 COP SRS liquor license already, so that's been approved already, and we're actually in the process of you know, with Durham, City, Miami-Dade County, and getting our
What's the
permit.
menu gonna be?
Appetizers, very appetizers, appetizers.
It's gonna be more, you know, signature foods where you can only
Sports bar,
actually order
appetizer.
at the KVLC and whatnot. So it's gonna be very
want-
appealing and very tasty.
If you wanna eat, you can go across the street to
Yes, to
Randy's.
Randy's if you want.
Correct. If you want to eat Haitian
Or you can go
stuff,
to Le
go
Cap
across
next
the
door,
street.
but
I am planning going,
You coming?
voting yes, but
You guys are more than
what
welcome.
about the parking lot?
Well,
I don't see that you
They-
have too many.
the property owner actually owns the empty lot behind the retail, and he has given it to them, and the property owner also owns the pawn shop
Correct.
and has given him
Oh.
also the access to it. So the property owner is gonna like update those things, because even if, it's not just us, when he goes to the zoning department, those are the requirements for the number of seating that he's doing. And I know you already met with the zoning department.
Yes, I have.
Already. So, but yeah, the, part of his deal with the property owner, apart from having them fix it, was giving him the parking space for it. So it's an empty green lot right now behind, it's kinda like facing, okay, it's facing Northwest Six, yeah,
Are they going to redo the facade for the whole entire
strip, yes.
That's good.
Yeah, Le Cap, the subway, and there's another empty space.
Yeah, the pawn shop is using that
Yeah,
temporary for
so
next
they're
door
doing,
as
the
well.
property owner is doing the full strip.
Maybe they'll attract other businesses there.
Yeah, 700.
Yeah.
How many people will you see?
I want to say
200.
approximately about I think it's like roughly 219.
Yeah.
Is when roughly around that.
Go to Opaloca Boulevard on 700.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Ladies, gentlemen? Okay, do I hear a motion to
I'll
approve?
move. Second.
Second, any further
Third.
discussion?
Oh, they hold.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations.
All right,
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you for your time.
Tomorrow, 5:30. Last action item is the approval of the CEPCO contracting project for the Liberty Gardens project. I know the chair has been asking about it for a while. This has been on our books, but it just, you know, there were always some kind of delay. So Alberto is here.
Okay, once again, committee members, Alberto Estrade, Purchasing Director. Item number 6, as Rasha mentioned, is staff's recommendation for the award. It's a bid award for the Liberty Gardens Pocket Park. This was a bid that was requested and solicited by the CRA under solicitation number 511718. This pocket park is going to be located at 715 Northeast 125th Street, which is right down the street from here. In response to the solicitation, the city received 4 bids, and they're tabulated for you on the first page of the report. Following our review and evaluation of each one of the bids, the project team members, which included representatives from the CRA, Community Planning and Development Office, and the project engineers, which is the Corradino Group, met with the low bidder, the company CEPCO Contracting LLC, and we were able to agree on a reduced price of $297,559, which is what is being recommended or submitted for your recommendation, rather. This is the not-to-exceed amount of this bid award, and the duration of the project will be 90 days from issuance of a notice to proceed. As was mentioned also by Rasha, this project has been reviewed extensively and recommended by the Downtown Action Plan Advisory Committee, otherwise known as the DAPAC Committee, and they were very instrumental also in the final development and design of this pocket park. This concludes my presentation, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
How does the, you know, we talked about murals on this area, so it would be the same mural for 5 years? Or what?
Well,
I'm not
there's-
sure.
For this particular project, actually Kent Walia, who used to be the planning person who came up with the design and idea, he had suggested panels, like
Okay,
3 long
right,
panels.
okay.
However, I think Councilman Keys wanted a mural, but when we do a call to artists, we're gonna put both of them to the artist, and then they have to come and present it, and we'll be able to determine from that point on. But the initial idea when we did this was 3 panels that could be interchangeable. You can bring new.
I would much prefer to see that. much
So
prefer.
we will, when we do the call to artists, we'll
Okay.
ask for, flexibility in terms of
Right.
what they're presenting.
Okay, yeah, I
Okay.
got a little worried when I saw the
Yeah,
five-year
this
thing.
is one of the projects that has been on the list for the downtown
Right.
Yeah.
Development Authority for a while.
Mhm.
And really is going to enhance, I think everybody's on board, is going to really enhance that part of the street
Yeah.
downtown.
Yes,
And eventually will hopefully be part of what is being done in a lot of other cities, and that is develop the alleyway.
Mhm.
So, and that park would just be fit perfectly in that particular,
Yeah.
as well, so.
You were
It's
saying?
funny you brought that up, because I was gonna talk about alleyways at the end of the meeting, but that, yeah.
Okay, all right. So does anybody have any other questions?
No,
Do I hear a motion to approve?
Yes.
Second?
Okay, I'm sorry, who made them?
Mary.
Okay, thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
committee members.
Destrade. We have Chief Rhea here with us, patiently waiting. We haven't had a police report in a while, unfortunately, because our agenda has been a little bit packed. So this is an outdated report, but it is very important for you to know what the police is doing out there and their interactions with the businesses and, our activities.
For the downtown, good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. I'm Assistant Chief Francia Bria with the North Miami Police Department. And I'm gonna touch on the downtown CRA first. Officers working the downtown CRA from July the 1st to the September the 30th made 680 business contacts in which they actively engaged in business owners, contacting business owners and conversating with the security in the downtown area. In addition to that, they had 929 business checks, 959 parking lot checks, 17 calls for service. They expedited police service, visited City Hall 134 times, and made contact with visitors, over 1,139 visitors, made contact with them. The highlights for the downtown CRA was assisting the Jazz at Mocha event business opening, visiting City Hall over 100 times, responding to several calls, working with local banks, arresting trespassing after warning, city locating subject, assisting the City of Miami locating a subject, clearing several traffic crashes, and posting abandoned vehicles. Statistically summary for the 2018 fiscal year, we had a total of 2,708 business contacts, 4,052 business checks, 810 City Hall checks, parking lot checks, 4,017. Calls for service, 43, backup to officers, 163, and citizen contact, 4,823. There was an increase of 39% increase for business contact, 21% increase in citizen contact for the fiscal year. So that was the highlight for the downtown CRA. Any questions on that?
Anybody have any questions?
Good
Okay,
job.
Chief, thank you very much.
I'm gonna give you a little bit on the
Northwest 7th Avenue. Come on, people.
On the northwest.
Come on.
And statistically, for the Northwest, for the fiscal year, we had 1,070 business contacts. 2,116 business checks, parking lot checks, 2,026. Calls for service, 14. Backup for officers, 89. And citizen contacts, 2,189. And what we're trying to do is make sure that the officers are more visible, getting out of their vehicles, turning on their lights, making contact with the business owners, showing themselves, not just parking their vehicle as a deterrent, making contact with the business owners. Walking the corridors, and I'm gonna talk about the corridors, making sure that they're very visible in the corridors. So that's what we're doing, and we're making sure that we're more engaged with our officers to show them that the brass is out there, communicating with them and making sure that they work this off duty and just not put the same old information, that they're actually contacting. the business owners.
And I'd like to add to Chief Bria's report, an update. So Chief Beige has already gotten, you remember we approved the license plate readers?
Mhm.
Okay, and he's already gotten the approval from the property owners to have the, you know, the cameras
Okay.
placed. The agreement has been executed and so in the next couple of months, the company we hired is gonna start placing them, and we're gonna have that as an additional security for the area. And just a reminder, it's 5, it's 125th Street, West Dixie. There's one on 119th Street on the city side, and one on Northwest 7th Avenue and 125th Street. So for now, the pilot program that we're doing is these 5 areas, major corridor areas, that'll hit north, south, east, west. And I think that as we see the benefits of that, we'll probably expand it a little bit further in the other parts of the CRA as well. So that's it for the police report.
Okay.
Have we had any other businesses sign up for that other program?
For not the Nomi Connect yet, I mean, and that's really because Chief Beige and I, we've been working on the campaign, the logo with our graphics, the city's graphics department, so we're gonna actually do like a whole campaign about it. But when grant applicants come in and they ask for security cameras and so on, we explain that to them, and they're in the process of getting cameras, like these applicants, they all have security cameras in it. But in terms of the program itself, we're gonna launch it as a whole campaign. We got a new logo and so on and so forth. And that's the reason why I wanted to make sure it was in the guidelines, that it's branded Nomi Connect, so we're all aware of what it is that we're paying for. All right, thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to mention 2 things, even though we skipped the CRA attorney's report.
There's no report.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, we did not convene in December due to lack of quorum. One of the items that you don't have in front of you is the mobility hub master plan. That was to the board and it was approved. I brought for you the executive summary. And just to make sure you understand like what was voted on and so on and so forth. So after we did the presentation, this is a recommendation for the Tri-Rail stop on 123rd Street, a mobility hub. Major points is the consultant has said that we need to look at redeveloping in nodes. So that area, they're proposing to upzone it to 200 feet where the train tracks are for 125th Street and 13th Avenue. The 5 points intersection for 200, and I think on West Dixie by the library type area. So they said those 3 nodes,
3 are again,
the train tracks, 123rd, 125th,
right,
5 points intersection,
right,
and West Dixie by
Okay.
the library where we
Okay.
actually own lots and so on and so forth. And they said that, you know, it'll help with not only the mobility hub, but for creating businesses. And these are instead of having these different zoning guidelines, just to focus on these 3 nodes, upzone it, and the rest will come.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
It does, it makes a lot of sense.
So they also have other activities. I have homework. We have homework for next year's budget. But right now that the board has approved this, the next step, I've been asked several times already, but by realtors, the next step is the zoning aspect of it has to go through the CP&D department. They have to work on those items. The rest of it for us, meaning the CRA, they want us to start looking at activating several parts of the city, the alleyways, certain underutilized parking lots, because they even showed in their map how you can really just, like for instance, biking on 125th Street is, if you want to get killed, go ahead. But there are alleyways, straight lines that you can take from, let's say if the Tri-Rail was here, go all the way up, and you won't be interrupted, you won't get hit.
Right.
So they looked at all of the streetscapes, and also they said for the residential areas that abut all these developments, we have to come up with ways to slow down the traffic and enhance, with more trees, more like separating the bike path from the sidewalk to make people walk more and to use the bikes more. So this is the executive summary. The actual master plan is like 175 pages. It is on our website. I will have some extra copies of the master plan. They're supposed to deliver them this week, if you guys want to have it. But this is like the bread and butter of the whole report, really, because it tells you. So I brought these. I had them for last meeting, and since you didn't come, I had already killed a tree, so I brought it back here for you to see.
By the way, Roger, speaking of killing trees, thanks for the iPads.
Oh, you're welcome. It's not me, it's the IT department. So
And
thank
these
you
are we
to the
taking
IT
them home?
department.
Oh, I need one.
Are we
Yeah.
taking these home with us now?
Yes, it's yours.
Yeah.
'Cause no.
Yeah, you say yes.
I apologize. No. We are not talking about no, we're talking about that. And the last item,
About this.
the executive report. Thank you. Yeah, right. He's right here waiting, and he'll be checking you at the door. The last item is the Lost City grant that was approved by the board. They had, Councilman Galvin or Councilman Bieneme had requested that they provide quarterly updates and so on as to where they are and everything. There is a representative here, but he didn't have to come. But I know he's here anyway. And pretty much just for us to know, because it is a large investment and in the breweries and so on, just to see how they were going and so on. So pretty much, as far as I know, unless it's updated, they're still in Durham for permitting and so on and so forth. Their contract is on the mayor's desk to be executed. They are ready to start the construction as soon as Durham has provided them with the permits. They estimated about 6 to 8 months of construction. Go ahead. So that is part of the requirement from the council, so he has to give us a little update.
Okay. You want to introduce yourself again?
Sure. Christopher Campos, Lost City Brewing Company, CEO. So we're still in county. We are 100% done with industrial. They had just one little thing for us to fix, which is move a sampling port. County Air asked our engineer to clarify some of the numbers they were getting from the Brewers Association, and with that, we should be good on Durham's side. Any day now, we should be getting back a report from fire. Cross your fingers that they don't ask us for anything additional, but you know, we shall see. Other than that, water and sewer we're good with. They're just waiting for Durham approval. And we've selected a general contractor, and they've given us a estimate now of 5 months, but you know, usually construction takes longer than that. What's projected, so
6 months.
I'd say the 8-month estimate that was just mentioned would be a very safe thing. So yeah, we're that's more or less the update.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Any question? I think.
Any questions?
No. We're good. I think Mr. Each had some comments.
Pardon?
I think Mr. Each had some comments. If
Yeah,
we didn't take it all away with the alleyways.
Well, you mentioned alleys, and we got a couple of things coming up with the planning commission and also with our charter review board. What you said about the bicycle paths and all of this, right now you see like innovative ideas on the I-95 and the expressways with these parks. We have alleyways all over the city, and they're absolutely just putrid. I mean, they're not being used, and we can turn those things into a thing of beauty. I go back to the High Line in New York, where they turned that old railroad tracks into a beautiful park in the sky. You see a project going on in Atlanta right now where they're talking about redeveloping a park in the sky. And I look at 125th Street, and let me qualify. I say, well, we're spinning our wheels, we're doing the same thing. We have to think outside the box, and we're not doing that sometimes, and I'm glad to see that we're getting this alley, and you and I are kind of on the same wavelength. I mean, this is, and we could put CRA money in there. I was thinking the other day, like on 7th Avenue or 8th Avenue on the west side, some of those alleyways really look like hell. They're not being used for anything. Why don't we create a boardwalk back there? Instead of charging the property owners for their money, to buy that land, give it to them,
That's
have them
strange.
invest and do something like we do
Yeah.
with these storm windows and put it on their tax bill. Or we make a beautiful boardwalk, a thing of attraction where you wanna come to this neighborhood, you wanna live there. Something, and instead of the same old day in, day out routine. You know, something innovative, and I think it's time we do that. Something I'd like to ask you if you could do.
Sure.
I'd like to know where the revenues come from what the residential areas contribute to the TIF, what the industrial areas contribute to the TIF, and what the commercial areas, and how it goes back, if that's possible. I mean, we have one big pool, but I'd like to see where it comes from. The
It'll
reason I
take a
bring that
minute.
up is I do a lot of walking. 125th Terrace, it's divided between 1 and 2. Okay? It looks like hell. I go up to North Miami Beach, I see a beautiful, beautiful curb and gutter, beautiful streets up there. It looks like hell. I mean, it's just terrible. I've seen a beautiful project, and I don't know if the CRA contributed to it or not, right off 133rd Street in Dixie. Those 2 blocks going in, I mean, they really did a great job over there. I mean, fantastic, and that's why I like to see the whole city look, but I like to know where some of this money, because we're giving it to the businesses, but what are we gonna do for the residential areas? Are we coming back and giving them?
So, can I answer that? First of all, that I have to go through the property appraiser's office, Miami-Dade County, because they're the ones that provide us the data for the TIF. So it'll take a minute for them to get back to us, but I am gonna make the request.
If you can, I
Yeah,
appreciate
no.
it.
As you recall, in our interlocal, we are required to spend a minimum of 10% of our net budget on housing. So this year, $549,000 is going to rehabbing single-family homes. We hired FIU to do a housing assessment. It took a minute to get all the data, but they will be coming to you in February to present their data. And their data is pretty much what we already knew, was we need to focus on the multifamily, the major corridors, you know, cleaning up Northeast 6th Avenue and bringing in mixed income apartments along the major corridors, and how do we incentivize that? So when they present this report to you all in February and we approve it, that is going to guide how we fund housing next year.
I'm not looking at only housing, I'm talking about neighborhood beautification.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that 125th Terrace, I wanna cry. It's just horrible.
No, I know.
The street is horrible,
So-
the streetscape is horrible, and the purpose of the CRA was to
But-
alleviate blight. I wanna
Yes,
see that
but
blight
here's the
alleviated.
thing, Mr. Each,
don't
there,
go
they has
there
to be done
anymore.
systematic for it to
Wanna
actually
do
make
something.
it has to be done systematic for it to actually make an impact. So for us, beautifying, when you beautify a specific street in a residential area, it pretty much has zero positive TIF, return on investment or anything like that. However, if you start one of these projects, like you were talking about enhancing the downtown and, you know, getting something built up to 10 stories. Once that's done and we've invested into the infrastructure and that property is done, those tax revenues can then go to those residential homes in the back. And we can prioritize those areas for the gateways, the streetscapes, and so on and so forth. And that's how normally we're supposed to do it.
Well, that's
'Cause
great.
any other way would be
That's
like
great in
spot
theory, But
beautifying.
in reality, the people that have been supporting the city for the last 30 or 40 years should get some kind of a return on their investment. The people that live here, that live in those residential areas, that are supporting now the commercial areas, I like to see some of that money go back and improve their neighborhoods.
It
I
is
think they're
going.
entitled to it.
It is going. It's just
I'm
how.
not talking about only rehab, but I'm talking about neighborhood beautification within the CRA. That's my concern.
So, for instance, I don't know if you remember Sasso Pool beautification. It's a CRA. We're going to be enhancing several of the parks. The whole Griffin Park Green Trail enhancement for that area is a CRA funded thing.
I
So we are
understand that,
doing
but
it.
Go
So
through these neighborhoods, walk through these neighborhoods, and you'll see the blight. And that's part of the CRA, and that's what I want to see happen with the
But
people.
wait a minute, Kenny, we have to educate the people that live there, that they have to clean up.
I'm talking about swale areas, trees, lighting, curb and gutter, new sidewalks.
She's right, people don't take care of theirs well, you know, they
Well,
just
I think that's all
run
being
it out, it's
addressed.
education, help.
I think it's all being
Yeah, but that has
addressed.
nothing to do with, I'm talking about 125th Terrace or those other streets
Well, but they
alongside.
still
They're
need
terrible.
to-
They're
need to know.
dilapidated. They need to, I go up to North Miami Beach, I see nice streets. I go over there, I see crap. And this is part of the CRA, and we can huff and puff and blow our house down, but it's not changing how that looks.
Well, I think
Code
it's,
enforcement can be that.
well, code enforcement's another issue.
All right, I said what I had to say, and I like.
To adjourn?
Missed the kickoff, I need to go home. Sorry.
Honey,
So,
can I go
anyway.
home?
Adjourn.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's probably being done and buried by the time we get
No.
out.
Can we get a motion to adjourn
It's-
already? No.
Do I have,
Can I
yeah,
go
you
home?
can, yes. Come up and introduce yourself.
Oh, they have to do
There goes the
something?
kickoff.
Hi everyone, my name is Janine Swa. I'm a business owner. I'm based in St. Pete.
And I'm Megan Moran.
And so as millennials, we definitely understand the frustration because we are looking to relocate our business and we've been scouting North Miami for the past 3 months, I'll say. And so sir, I know 3-4 months. So sir, I definitely understand what you mean because we are millennials who focus on experiences and what communities can not just provide in goods and services, but what we can truly enjoy. That includes parks, that includes walkable areas, biking, and St. Pete has done a really, really good job at effectively implementing a lot of these initiatives because everybody works together. So again, similar to what you were saying, it's like a meeting of the minds, as Linda said to us today, is like you have all the stakeholders come and meet together for a common purpose and then you can effectively execute. But we definitely love what you guys are doing and hopefully we'll be moving our company here within the next couple months.
What is your company?
It's called Think Global. It's formerly known as Accountability Buddy. But we work with a lot of municipalities like St. Pete and Tampa to help them increase foot traffic through community events and business development.
Okay.
So we've worked with a lot of companies there. We host a lot of high energy events to increase the amount of people who come there, to increase the quality of people who come there, the money that's being spent in that area, and also the amount of effective leaders that are then being able to implement some of those initiatives that the city wants to provide.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We'll be around. So.
Thank you very much.
And I have to say that those of us who've been around a little while realize that the CRA of 7 years ago is not the CRA of today. And we are addressing, huh?
Oh,
Yeah. Well, what I mean is, it's the difference in what we're accomplishing and what's being done is totally a whole different thing, 180 degrees different. Thanks to Rasha and the staff and of course our attorney and everybody else who's involved. And
Thank
we're
you,
addressing.
Mike.
Yeah, and I think that everybody's a part of it, and it is a team effort, and it is, everybody coming together and thinking together and coming to solutions, and I know there's a lot to be done, but it's one thing at a time, one piece at a time. So, anyway, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Oh, yes.
I'm gonna miss the kickoff and I'm gonna be very upset.
Honey, I want to go home.
All in favor?
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, nice meeting.
Yeah? Started the year
I thought
fresh?
about